Hi, everyone, and welcome to number 3 of a 7-part series, a partnership with the Global Wellness Institute's Workplace Wellbeing Initiative. Today, we have the amazing guest, Zach Mercurio, author of The Power of Mattering. I actually have a book right here. Actually, I have 2 copies with me. Zach, it is awesome to have you as our guest today. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks, Laura. I'm glad to be here, and I'm glad that this conversation exists about this topic.
Me too. So I am coming in from San Francisco, and I know, Zach, you're coming in from Fort Collins, Colorado, correct?
That's right. That's right.
And for our guests, if you wouldn't mind putting in the chat, as always, where you're coming from so we can see where everybody is coming from. So as always, as part of this 7-part series, I'd like to extend a special thanks to Jessica Grossmeyer, Elizabeth Backrod, as well as Elinette Serrano, and all the other members of the Workplace Wellbeing Initiatives group. The goal of the GWI Workplace Wellbeing Initiative is to transform workplace well-being. And again, the topic in this 7-part series is all about well-being at work, and certainly mattering is a big part of that. So in addition to transforming workplace well-being, their goal is to enhance organizational performance and empower a thriving workforce. And AJ, if you can put a link to that, that would be great. So again, our topic is the power of mattering. Our guest is Zach Mercurio. So Zach is a researcher, a leadership development facilitator. He works with leaders around the world, author of The Power of Mattering, as well as The Invisible Leader. And he is also a prolific writer of some really amazing articles that really, I think, are, I don't know, Zach, I would call these articles a little bit disruptive because it's challenging us to take a second look at some issues that we think that we understand very well, but maybe we don't. So issues like loneliness, as well as employee engagement. And so those are in the chat, the links to some of those articles. And of course, we also have our book giveaway. So we have 2 lucky winners this time, as opposed to one, who will get a copy of Zach's book along with a copy of Workplace Wellness That Works. As you all know, this is the 10-year anniversary of that book coming out. I cannot believe it's been that long. So in addition to writing where you're coming from, and I love seeing where, gosh, we've got people coming in from Wellington. We've got people coming in from Colorado. We've got people coming in from Kentucky, Minnesota, Maryland, Charlotte, North Carolina. So great to see all of you. And also Pinehurst, North Carolina. That's actually a place where my sister spent a lot of time. She was she's an equestrian, so she spent a lot of time there.
And Nathan from Pinehurst is a former supervisee of mine. So I actually was his supervisor. So he can give you the real scoop on Zach actual leadership.
I love it. Well, welcome to all of you. So again, please write in the chat, "I'm in," to indicate that you would like to be part of the draw. And again, 2 lucky winners this time. All right. And then, of course, also, it is not too late to join the Teen Care Wellness Challenge. And this is something actually that Zach and I are going to be talking about quite a bit about. Let's shift our focus from having such a hyper focus on the individual to talking more about what we need to be doing differently. So Zach, congratulations again on your book.
Thank you.
It's a really amazing book, and a really important one as well. So I'd love to start first with the story that you shared at the outset of your book around what prompted your writing this book.
I'll deviate a little bit because I think there are 3 streams that came together to form this river that made this book unstoppable.
Okay.
A lot of people asked me, why did you want to write this book? And I didn't really want to write another book. Like, I didn't have that inherent desire. but I really felt like I had to write this book, given the moment that we were in. And the three streams were this. The first was when I was a PhD student, the first study I did was with a group of university cleaners. And these were people who were often rendered invisible by the environment around them, both in terms of their schedule. They would come in and clean buildings overnight when nobody was there, and by the people around them. I would be in this interview setting with this group of janitors in their break area, and I would see people using the buildings, walking by, literally throwing a piece of trash, it hitting the edge of the trash can, landing on the floor, and then walking by. And my goal in that study was to understand what made work meaningful in a position often rendered invisible. And what we found time after time after time, the difference between the custodians that thrived and those that languished was that they experienced very small moments repeatedly where people saw them, remembered their name, took an interest in their lives, showed them the difference that they made, truly offered them compassion, reframed their work as meaningful. And it happened in very small interactions, which we've now come to call moments of mattering. And after that study, we then studied over 1,000 people in 22 industries. And we were asking them, what does your leader do to help you feel motivated, to help you feel like your work is meaningful, to help you feel committed? And we didn't see, in all of the data that we collected, we never heard my leader gave me a promotion, gave me more money, instituted a well-being program, had a great employee engagement survey, had a great quarterly earnings report, great product launches. We didn't hear any of that. We didn't hear about big actions. We heard again about small interactions, right? In which people felt seen, in which they felt heard. So that's one stream that's coming down the pike. And then after 2020, we started seeing, I started going out and working with organizations and talking to thousands of people. And I kept hearing the same thing. You know, I feel like I belong. I feel like I'm included, but I feel like no one would miss me if I was gone. I feel like I'm in a room yelling and no one's hearing me. And that experience I was seeing matched up with the data that started showing that 30% of people felt invisible at work. You know, just 40% of people indicate that someone cares for them as a person in work in global studies. More people than ever feel lonely at work and unvalued in work. And that stream then coalesced to where we are now with the rise of technology, you know, that is taking over and has actually eclipsed our skills to see, hear, and value one another. We're actually losing those skills. Less than 2% of the world right now gets any education on how to listen well, for example.
Wow.
And so here we are, right? So these three things came together, and they really prompted me to think about the fact that we were getting this wrong. We were getting a lot of things wrong. A lot of people thought loneliness, and I know we're going to talk about that, was about connecting more, but it's not. The opposite of loneliness isn't having more people around you. It's feeling that you matter to those around you. The real root of disengagement wasn't the fact that people didn't have well-being programs or DEI programs that worked, or all of these big programmatic initiatives. It was that they didn't feel seen, heard, valued in daily interactions. And then we knew that from our research, and all of this came together very clearly that showed that we are not facing a disengagement crisis. We are not facing a loneliness epidemic. We are not facing a well-being issue. We are facing a mattering deficit at its core. More people than ever feel like they're in a room with a bunch of people and nobody knows them. Nobody sees them. And that feeling erodes motivation, engagement, and incites loneliness. And so that's when I said, okay, we know too much not to share. I have to write this book.
So your view really is that mattering is kind of is foundational to all of these topics that we've been talking about so much, whether it's engagement or loneliness, that it's really about mattering. So really quickly, I just want to remind our guests, and thank you to all of our guests who are here today, to please share your comments and also ask Zach any questions. Happy to take those at any time. So let's just back up a little bit, Zach, and I'd love to hear a definition of mattering, and particularly how we kind of delineate what mattering means relative to other terms like purpose or even attention. I mean, one thing that really struck me was in your book, you shared about the birth of your first son. And by the way, one of the things that I forgot to mention earlier is you're a dad of 2 boys. You also love to camp and hike. You are a true Colorado guy. But you know, in describing the birth of your first son, you described, oh, and this is hippie. You described how there was this, you know, the moment that he was born and he kind of grasped onto your hand, and that this was a moment of mattering, that he was asking you to, that there's this instinctual need to feel like we matter. And that story actually reminded me a lot of Chris Hayes in his book, The Siren's Call, talking about an instinctual need for attention. So I'm wondering if you could just help us to understand more specifically what mattering means.
Yes. So first and foremost, to matter to someone else is our first survival instinct. You know, that grip of my finger, scientists call that our grasp reflex. It's one of several reflexes we're born with. The first thing everybody did here, who's on this call right now, was that you extended your arms in a hugging motion and you grasped for someone. You grasped for someone to matter enough to, so they would keep you alive. That never goes away. You search to matter to someone before you search for food. As we grow up, just like every survival instinct, that instinct turns into a fundamental psychological need. The need to feel seen, heard, valued, and needed by those around us. And it never goes away. As we grow up through childhood and into adulthood, it manifests in that need to feel that others are paying attention to us, that others value us, and that others need us. Others rely on us. And when those conditions are met, we experience what psychologists call mattering. And mattering is the experience of feeling significant to the people around you. That comes from 2 primary experiences. And these were first theorized by psychologist Isaac Prelotensky. The experience of feeling valued by those around us, feeling seen and heard. That's why attention is one part of mattering, because it helps us to feel valued. And then knowing exactly how we add value to those around us, knowing how our unique gifts make a unique difference. And ironically, it's like a virtuous cycle. The more we feel valued, the more self-esteem, self-worth, belief in our capability, confidence we have to add value. The more we add value and see the difference we make, the more we feel valued. And the results are things like motivation, resilience, well-being, sustainable performance. And yes, mattering is different from other terms that we've talked about. The key to remember is that mattering comes first. That was the original title of my book. Mattering comes before everything else we say we want in our organizations. Mattering is the animating force of human behavior. Think about this. You wouldn't have done anything today if at some small level you did not believe that your life was worthy of your unrelenting energy. You wouldn't have had a sip of water. You wouldn't have eaten anything. You wouldn't have kept going if you didn't believe that you mattered at some small level. And so the degree to which we matter, the degree to which we feel that we matter, usually correlates to the degree to which we act like we matter. Commit, engage, innovate, do all of the things that we say we want. But it is different than belonging, for example. Like belonging is feeling welcomed and accepted in a group. I can feel like I belong in a group and not feel that anybody knows that, for example, I'm a caretaker of an elderly parent, or that have someone be able to name my unique gifts. Or it's different than inclusion. Inclusion is being able to take an equal active role in a group. I can feel like I can take an equal active role here, but feel completely invisible to the people around me. Mattering is the experience of feeling significant to individuals. And this is why it's important, is that it happens through those moments that we uncovered in our research. It happens through interactions. You can't program your way out of a mattering deficit. You can
you also can't self-help your way.
You cannot
out of a mattering deficit.
Yes, because and this is a great point. You can, but it's true that your worth does not depend on other people. but it can be shattered or strengthened by other people. It's true that you can believe that you matter on your own, but it's through others that we are shown how we matter. And that's the role of others, is that we give people the evidence of their significance that
Mm,
strengthens the belief that they're significant, which helps us meet that fundamental human need to matter, which means when people feel that they matter, they act like they matter. Um, and it's often overlooked because it's basically as foundational as sleep or eating. And oftentimes we don't consciously think about these things because they're common sense. And the problem is that these common sense ideas like mattering don't become common practice. We don't consciously, intentionally, strategically do them. But now we can't look away. Right?
got it.
We can't look away now. And so uh when we can name something, we can invest in it, we can change it. And I think more and more people are saying, you know what? I do feel like I belong. I do feel like I'm included. I do feel like I have purpose.
But I don't feel like I matter.
But I feel like I could be gone
Mhm.
and nobody would notice.
Yeah. It is a really interesting retake on some of these issues. So thank you, Alana, for posting this question from Leslie. And Leslie, thank you for your question. I have a question for Zach. Hi, Zach. In your view, how do we get individuals to care about others when they just don't? Oh, such a good question. No matter what we try, do you think that these skills and abilities can be taught to anyone, or do they need to have that caring attitude already?
Well, I would imagine that people that don't care about others don't feel cared for themselves.
Mhm.
We can't expect people to care if they don't first feel cared for. Many toxic behaviors are actually the inevitable outcomes of feeling insignificant. For example, a lot of people say, well, I have narcissists on my team. You know, the chances are you probably don't. I mean, less than 1.5% of the world is a clinical narcissist.
Oh,
The chance that
interesting.
the chances, right? So we overuse that word. The chances are that you actually have someone that's experienced perpetual experiences of anti-mattering in their childhood, throughout school. And so they're either acting out in desperation to get the attention they didn't get through the obsessive acquiring and achieving of results at all costs, negative gossip, other acts of desperation, protesting, defensiveness, or they withdraw, they isolate, they withhold, they leave. So, you know, a lot of people say to me, like, what do I do if my leader doesn't show me that I matter? And I always say, like, do you show them that they matter?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because again, we can't expect someone to care if they don't feel cared for. Almost all human behavior is an outcome of either a met need or an unmet need. So instead of thinking about that person as a person who doesn't care, thinking about that person as a human being, a mother, a father, a brother, a sister, someone's beloved child who is acting in ways that I perceive to be as uncaring. And that will remove you from the label and help you actually meet and identify what are some of the unmet needs that this person that I say is an uncaring person or an uncaring leader is actually not having met. And may I be a part of them?
Mm.
By even treating them as if there's someone who's hopeless, they'll never care. Am I part of the environment around them that actually manifests the behaviors in them that I say I don't want? And I think that's why we need to move beyond labeling people to deeply understanding the underlying influences of the behavior we see. And I have found in my practice that many of the most quote unquote toxic or difficult employees, for example, and even leaders tend to be at their core, if you really get down to it, the ones who feel the most unseen, unheard, unvalidated, and that no one's paying attention to them anymore. And what's happening is they're acting out in ways to secure that desperate need, that desperate instinct to matter.
You know, so much of this is so familiar to me as a former public high school teacher, is that the kids who are acting out the most are really just acting out, I want to matter. And that we think often, oh, that's what we do as kids. And the truth of the matter is that we do it for a lifetime. So Leslie, thank you so much for your question.
Laura, can I add one thing for
Yeah.
Leslie? I would say there was another part of that question. Yes, I think anybody can learn the skills to care. A lot of the defensiveness that I see with leaders, for example, who say, oh, this is the touchy feely, or this is the fluffy stuff, or this gets in the way of results. is actually a defensiveness based on inability. So, like, if I tell you to start eating better and you go to Google and you type in how to eat better and you get all this advice and you feel overwhelmed, I'm more likely to be like, oh, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. I don't need that because I'm overwhelmed. If you tell someone, hey, I want you to go create psychological safety for your team, but they don't know how to actually sit there in the discomfort with somebody and seek to understand the meaning behind someone's words, and they don't have that skill, they're much less likely to do it. So I do believe that a lot of the motivation to care is a skill and abilities issue. And one of the reasons why that's so important in this conversation is that for the last 25 years, we've actually been able to get out of the social situations that have taught us these skills to care because we've used these things.
Yep.
I can easily get out of showing compassion if Laura sends me some bad news by texting her a sad-faced emoji and saying I'm sorry to hear that, or going on Slack and giving a thumbs down and be like, I'll catch up with you next week. Every time we do that, we miss out on social learning. I don't have to sit with Laura anymore, seek understanding, show compassion. And so for all of us, these skills to see, hear, value, and understand others have withered underneath our eyes without us even knowing it over the past 25 years because of reliance on short digital transactions to interact with one another. So
they literally
we can reskill these. We can reskill.
Yeah, and these devices are literally rewiring our brains and creating new habits. And we're not even necessarily conscious of the fact that we're developing these kind of collective habits that are driven by these incredible forces. So we had a question that came in. And again, thank you all for your questions. Can we get that posted again? So should we be seeking out mentors that are, quote, strong in mattering? Great question. Thank you for that.
Well, first of all, I think that we should be holding close to us the relationships in our lives that help us feel seen, heard, valued, and needed. You know, one of the things that we've discussed, Laura, is this idea of loneliness. And the conventional wisdom has been, hey, connect more, connect with more people. But the research is clear, and psychologist Alexander Danvers has done incredible research on what actually predicts loneliness. And it's not the quantity of interaction, it's the quality. And what makes a quality interaction? It's experiencing what psychologists call companionate love, the behaviors of attention, the behaviors of care, the behaviors of compassion, the behaviors of feeling seen, heard, and valued. So the opposite of loneliness, for example, is not having more people around you. It's feeling that you matter to the people around you. So when you are seeking out a mentor, yes, you want to seek out people who take an interest in you, who ask about your life, who remember details about your life and check in on them, who think about you when you're not there, who, when you say, they ask you how your weekend was and you say, oh, it was all right, who don't just let it go. And they say, hey, I noticed you were frustrated. What's going on? But we also need to do that for the mentors in our lives. And I think that oftentimes we get lulled into being passive recipients of relationships versus active constructors of the relationships we say we want. So you can also influence others' mattering behaviors by showing them how they matter. It's called the norm of reciprocity. For example, the more you ask someone about their personal life and how they're doing, eventually, if you do it consistently, they will start doing the same for you. And so this is why someone in the chat asked, is this a leader's responsibility? Leaders have a little bit more architectural power, but mattering is non-directional. Mattering is created through interactions. We have interactions all day. And so we have the choice to show up in interactions and take an interest and truly see, hear, and value others. So these are great questions.
And I love the way you define what a leader is in your book, which is anyone who has any influence over anyone else. And so to your point about how this influence can be bi-directional, I'm assuming that you mean by that effectively all of us are leaders to a certain extent.
Yeah, well, they told me I needed to have a target audience for my book. So I chose leaders, but then I defined it as anybody. Anybody who has a relationship with anybody and you're influencing behavior in any way, which we all are, you're a leader. Every skill in this book, and we've identified 25 skills that help people feel that they matter, can help you be a better parent. It can help you be a better friend. It can help you be a better community member. You can do any of these things with anybody in your life. And so, yes, leadership is not a formal role. Leading is a behavior, and it's a set of behaviors. And what we've found in our research is that the best leaders learn, hone, and develop these skills to cultivate mattering. They notice people, they affirm people, they show people how they're needed regularly. So yeah, anybody who influences anybody is a leader. You don't need positional power because you always have interactional power.
I love that.
You do not need your organization's permission or approval to care in your next interaction.
And, you know, we're actually, believe it or not, we've got 5 minutes left in our conversation. And, you know, one of the things that that I was really intrigued by was your talking about how Abraham Maslow, we all know about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and that he actually expressed some regret around his coining the phrase self-actualization, because it minimizes the role that we play in relation to one another, and that it never happens in isolation, but rather it happens in partnership with other people, in relationship with other people. So I'd love for you to recap, you know, give us some top 3 takeaways, but also if you could really tie this to why it is so detrimental that we have framed up so much of our efforts around well-being at work around personal responsibility. And instead, we really have to reposition this as a collective endeavor.
Yes. I mean, we are interdependent, and people don't like really unpacking that word, but interdependent means we need each other. So we rely on each other. And Maslow's pyramid has been misused for many years. The self-help industry was built on this idea that we can somehow actualize ourselves. It's trying to make us believe that we're not interdependent and that we're independent and that we don't rely on one another's, because it's easier. It's easier to think that way, that I'm in control, that I control my own destiny. But we're social beings. We become who we are with others. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy, for example, every single step, safety, belonging, esteem building, love, are all reliant on other people. Every step upward through self-actualization is ironically reliant on others. Even the systems to give us food, even the systems around us to give us basic sustenance are reliant on other people to do that for us. So
one takeaway, we become who we are with others. I love that.
Right. So there's right. So there's no true self-actualization. We actualize one another. The second is we actualize one another through everyday interactions. We can introduce the evidence of people's significance to one another through 3 practices we've identified: noticing them, truly seeing and hearing them, taking an interest in them, affirming them, naming their unique gifts and showing them how they make a unique difference in our lives, and showing them how they're needed. 5 words you could say to the next person you interact with is you can tell them how you rely on them and say, if it wasn't for you, right? It's these small things that help us to actualize one another. The final takeaway, I would say, is to schedule your good intentions. What I mean by that is that we tend to know that we should check in on somebody, that we should thank somebody, that we should show gratitude for somebody. For example, everybody here, think about someone you're grateful for in your life right now. And now think about the last time you explicitly told them, right? Oftentimes there's a gap. So when you have that feeling that you should check in, that you should call that person, that you should thank that person, that you should acknowledge them, pay attention to them, show them that you rely on them, put it on your calendar, put it to the top of your to-do list. We need to approach these skills to show others how they matter with as much rigor as we've approached the skills to help ourselves over the past half century.
I love that. So again, we become who we are with others. It's all about the everyday interactions, AKA moments of mattering, and then schedule it, be rigorous about it. So before it's too late, we are really at the top of the hour. Let's have our 2 draws here. So congratulations to Christy and Becky. So we'll be reaching out to both of you, and you will each get 2 books. Congratulations to our winners. Our next up is Newton Cheng for a topic. Our topic is Strong Enough. This will be on September 24th, 9 to 9:30. I hope that you all can join us then. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Zach, thank you so much. I want to make sure that everybody is able to follow your good work. So people can follow you at zachmercurio.com. Is that correct? Thank you so much for that, AJ. And also, I know that you're active on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. And we've got some great articles of yours that we have shared. So to everyone who was on our call today, please make sure that you check those out to really get some disruptive but important thinking around a lot of these topics that we've been talking about so much. Zach, you are amazing. Thank you so much for your important work around the power of mattering. You really got me to rethink some of these things that I've been talking about a lot, including things like loneliness, and that it really is deeper. And I'm going to start to think more about how mattering really is fundamental to everything. So again, thank you to our listeners. Zach, you're amazing. And to the Global Wellness Institute's Workplace Wellbeing Initiative, thank you for partnering on this. We'll see you all on September 24th. Take care.